Chapter 25. Non-economic values. Beware the people who moralize about great issues. Moralizing is easier than facing hard facts. John Corey. While economics offers many insights and makes it easier to see through some popular notions that sound good but will not stand up under scrutiny, economics has also acquired the name the dismal science, because it pours cold water on many otherwise attractive and exciting, but fallacious, notions about how the world can be arranged. One of the last refuges of someone whose pet project or pet theory has been exposed as economic nonsense is to say, economics is all very well, but there are also non-economic values to consider. Presumably, these are supposed to be higher and nobler concerns that soar above the level of crass materialism. Of course there are non-economic values. In fact, there are only non-economic values. Economics is not a value in and of itself. It is only a way of weighing one value against another. Economics does not say that you should make the most money possible. Many professors of economics could themselves make more money in private industry. Many people with a knowledge of firearms could probably make more money working as hitmen for organized crime. But economics does not urge you towards such choices. Adam Smith, the father of laissez-faire economics, gave away substantial sums of his own money to less fortunate people, though he did so with such discretion that this fact was discovered only after his death, when his personal records were examined. Henry Thornton, one of the leading monetary economists of the 19th century and a banker by trade, regularly gave away more than half his annual income before he got married and had a family to support. And he continued to give large donations to humanitarian causes afterwards, including the anti-slavery movement. The first public libraries in New York City were not established by the government, but by industrial entrepreneur Andrew Carnegie, who also established the foundation and the university that bear his name. John D. Rockefeller likewise established the foundation that bears his name, and the University of Chicago, as well as creating many other philanthropic enterprises. Halfway around the world, the Tata Institute in Mumbai was established by India's leading industrialist J.R.D. Tata as a scholarly enterprise, while another leading entrepreneurial family, the Birlas, established numerous religious and social institutions across India. The United States, which has come to epitomize capitalism in the eyes of many people around the world, is unique in having hundreds of colleges, hospitals, foundations, libraries, museums, and other institutions created by the donations of private individuals, many of these being people who earned money in the marketplace and then devoted much of it, sometimes most of it, to helping others. Forbes magazine in 2007 listed half a dozen Americans who had donated multiple billions of dollars each to philanthropy. The largest of these donations was $42 billion by Bill Gates, 42% of his total wealth. The largest percentage of his wealth donated by an American billionaire was 63%, by Gordon Moore. For the American population as a whole, the amount of private charitable donations per person is several times what it is in Europe. The percentage of the country's output that is donated to philanthropic causes is more than 3 times that in Sweden, France, or Japan. The market as a mechanism for the allocation of scarce resources among alternative uses is one thing. What one chooses to do with the resulting wealth is another. What lofty talk about non-economic values often boils down to is that some people do not want their own particular values weighed against anything. If they are for saving Mono Lake or preserving some historic building, then they do not want that weighed against the cost, which is to say, ultimately, against all the other things that might be done instead with the same resources. For such people, there is no point considering how many third-world children could be vaccinated against fatal diseases with the money that is spent saving Mono Lake or preserving a historic building. We should vaccinate those children and save Mono Lake and preserve the historic building, as well as doing innumerable other good things according to this way of looking at the world. To people who think, or rather react in this way, Economics is at best a nuisance that obstructs them from doing what they have their hearts set on doing. At worst, economics is seen as needlessly narrow, if not morally warped, is seen as a needlessly narrow, if not morally warped, way of looking at the world. Such condemnations of economics are due to the fundamental fact that economics is a study of the use of scarce resources which have alternative uses. We might all be happier in a world where there were no such constraints to force us into choices and trade-offs that we would rather not face. But that is not the world that human beings live in, or have ever lived in, during thousands of years of recorded history. Politics has sometimes been called the art of the possible, but that phrase applies far more accurately to economics. Politics allows people to vote for the impossible, which may be one reason why politicians are often more popular than economists, who keep reminding people that there is no free lunch and that there are no solutions, but only trade-offs. In the real world that people live in, and are likely to live in for centuries to come, trade-offs are inescapable. Even if we refuse to make a choice, circumstances will make choices for us, as we run out of resources for many important things that we could have had if only we had taken the trouble to weigh alternatives. Saving lives. Perhaps the strongest arguments for non-economic values are those involving human lives. Many highly costly laws, policies, or devices designed to safeguard the public from lethal hazards are defended on the grounds that, if it saves just one human life, it is worth whatever it costs. Powerful as the moral and emotional appeal of such pronouncements may be, they cannot withstand scrutiny in a world where scarce resources have alternative uses. One of those alternative uses is saving other human lives in other ways. Few things have saved as many lives as simply the growth of wealth. An earthquake powerful enough to kill 12 people in California will kill hundreds of people in some less affluent country, and thousands in a third-world nation. Greater wealth enables California buildings, bridges, and other structures to be built to withstand far greater stresses than similar structures can withstand in poorer countries. Those injured in an earthquake in California can be rushed far more quickly to far more elaborately equipped hospitals with larger numbers of more highly trained medical personnel. This is just one of innumerable ways in which wealth saves lives. Natural disasters of all sorts occur in rich and poor countries alike. The United States leads the world in tornadoes, for example, but their consequences are very different. The Swiss reinsurance company reported that the biggest financial costs of natural disasters in 2013 were in Germany, the Czech Republic, and France. But that same year, the biggest costs of natural disasters in human lives were all in third world countries, the Philippines and India. Given the high cost of medical care and of such preventative measures against disease as water treatment plants and sewage disposal systems, third world countries likewise suffer far more from diseases, including diseases that have been virtually wiped out in affluent countries. The net result is shorter lifespans in poorer countries. There have been various calculations of how much of a rise in national income saves how many lives. Whatever the correct figure may be, X million dollars to save one life, anything that prevents national income from rising that much has, in effect, cost a life. If some particular safety law, policy, or device costs 5x million dollars, either directly or by its inhibiting effects on economic growth, then it can no longer be said to be worth it if it saves just one human life, because it does so at the cost of 5 other human lives. There is no escaping trade-offs, so long as resources are scarce and have alternative uses. More is involved than saving lives in alternative ways. There is also the question of how much life is being saved and at how much cost. Some might say that there is no limit on how much value should be placed on a human life. But, however noble such words may sound, in the real world, no one would favor spending half the annual output of a nation to keep one person alive 30 seconds longer. Yet, that would be the logical implication of a claim that a life is of infinite value. When we look beyond words to behavior, people do not behave as if they regard even their own lives as being of infinite value. For example, people take life-threatening jobs as test pilots or explosives experts when such jobs pay a high enough salary for them to feel compensated for the risk. They even risk their lives for purely recreational purposes, such as skydiving, whitewater rafting, or mountain climbing. Using various indicators of the value that people put on their own lives in various countries, a study at the Harvard Law School estimated that the average American puts a value of $7 million on his or her life, while Canadians put a value of $4 million each on their lives, and people in Japan put a value of nearly $10 million. Whatever the validity or accuracy of these particular numbers, the general results seem to indicate that people do not in fact behave as if their own lives are of infinite value, and presumably they value their own lives at least as much as they value the lives of other people. How much it costs to save one life varies with the method used. Vaccinating children against deadly diseases in third world countries costs very little per child and saves many lives, including decades of life per child. Meanwhile, a heart transplant on an 80-year-old man is enormously expensive and can yield only a limited amount of additional life, even if the transplant surgery is completely successful, since the life expectancy of an octogenarian is not very great in any case. If a life is not of infinite value, then it cannot be true that, if it saves just one life, some device, law, or policy is worth whatever it may cost. Certainly it cannot be true if the cost of saving one life is sacrificing other lives.